Why do I need to read in English? My students often ask me this. They think I go to classes, I do my homework, I watch films in English, so why should I read books? Actually, reading is the best way to improve your English, and I will tell you why.
First, reading is very important. In the past, only 1 in 4 people went to university, but now more people attend university. All jobs require more reading and writing than they did years ago.
This is true for everyone, whether you're an office worker or a mechanic. Second, reading will improve your speaking, writing, vocabulary, and grammar better than any other method. It won't directly improve your listening, but it will enhance your vocabulary. With a better English vocabulary, you can listen more easily and improve your listening that way. In school, you probably read a lot of boring English textbooks and stories with exercises at the end. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about reading for pleasure. That means reading a book you enjoy simply because you enjoy it. You are not reading because your teacher said, read this book. You are not reading because you think, I should read this book. You are reading because you want to. In an experiment conducted in schools in America, they gave some boys free books. These were fun books, like James Bond. They said, you can do what you want. You don't have to read the books. But the boys did read the books. They read a lot of books. Some boys read a book every 2 days. After a few years, they gave the students a test. The students who received the books improved in reading and writing, and they liked school more. The students who did not receive the books did not improve in reading and writing. In fact, some of them got worse. This isn't just true for native speakers. They also conducted an experiment on students learning English in the Fiji Islands. They tested 3 methods of teaching. The first way was normal English teaching with grammar classes, exercises, and so on. The second way was silent reading, where the students read books in class. The third way was reading together, where the teacher read books to the students. After 1 year, the 2 methods that involve reading were the most effective. They performed much better than the students who did normal English classes. They repeated the experiment, this time in Singapore. There, the students who read in silence performed very well and scored the highest on grammar tests. The other students took grammar classes but performed worse on grammar tests. In normal classes, we tried to memorize grammar and vocabulary. When we read, we learn them naturally. Maybe you're thinking, when I read in English, it's too hard. I have to use the dictionary all the time. It's boring. I can't do it. I understand, so I wrote this book. I think this book will make you enjoy reading because the stories are easy and fun. The early stories are short and simple, while the later stories are longer and more challenging. When you finish the book, you will think, wow, I did it. I make a podcast called English Listening Practice. Now you can read the stories at beginner, pre-intermediate, intermediate, or advanced levels. The stories are all fairy tales. Some are very popular fairy tales, but some are less well known. One of them I wrote myself. Maybe you're thinking fairy tales are for children. I need useful vocabulary. I need to learn about business and science. That can't be fun. Actually, the vocabulary in these stories will be useful. McQuillan conducted an experiment where he studied the vocabulary found in novels. 8% of the words were on academic word lists. These are lists of words that you need to know to study at university. Rolls and Rogers also conducted an experiment. They asked, if students read 1,000,000 words of science fiction, will they learn important science vocabulary for studying at university? The answer was yes. So yes, fairy tales are useful for you too, but I understand if you still don't believe me. When I first learned about all this, I found it hard to believe as well. However, I like to try new things, and I love learning languages. So in 2017, I decided to do an experiment. I had wanted to learn Spanish for a long time, but I didn't learn much in normal classes. I said, I will read 1,000,000 words in Spanish afterward. I will see what my level is. 1,000,000 words is about 40 novels, so it was a lot of work. I started with very easy reading, like this book. Then I started reading translations of books that I knew in English. For example, I had read Harry Potter and Game of Thrones in English, so I read them in Spanish too. Finally, I read new books in Spanish. I explored Latin American authors such as Isabel Allende, Jorge Luis Borges, and Manuel Puig. I love them. I also listened to podcasts, but I always read the transcripts and added the words to my goal. After I finished reading 1,000,000 words, I wrote and talked to native speakers. I was at an intermediate level and could understand almost everything I read. I could understand people when they spoke clearly, and I could have conversations. I had spent most of my time reading, not speaking. In 1 year, I learned more than most students learn in 2 years. I didn't try to memorize grammar and vocabulary. I learned them naturally. Maybe you're thinking, I don't believe this. Or perhaps you're thinking, wow, I'm going to read for hours every day. But I have to say something very important. You must read books that are easy and fun. If a book is too difficult or too boring, put it down and find another one. Stephen Krashen, an expert in language teaching, says to only read things in English that are fun and interesting. Read things that are really easy, so easy that you wouldn't read them in your native language because they are too simple. So you can read comics, magazines, detective stories, romance stories, and so on. Don't feel bad about reading translations. If you read very easy books, when you encounter a word you don't know, you will understand the meaning easily. You won't have to use a dictionary. So, what is easy?
Experiments show that you should understand at least 98% of the words in the text. 98%? That's so high. I know, but let me show you an example. Here's a text where 50% of the words are not real words, so you should understand only 50% of the words. Jerry fled out of bed and opened the curtains. He grumbled to himself as he made breakfast. He brewed coffee and put butter on his toast.
Suddenly someone called his phone and he picked it up. He was very surprised by who was calling, so his coffee spilled on the floor.
Is that easy to understand? Could you read the whole book like that? Here is the same text, but only 2% of the words are not real. So you should understand 98% of the words. Jerry jumped out of bed and opened the curtains. He sang to himself as he made breakfast. He brewed coffee and put butter on his toast. Suddenly, someone called his phone, and he picked it up. He was very surprised by who was calling, so his coffee spilled on the floor.
How was that? You probably didn't understand everything, but it was more fun to read than the first text. That's why reading for pleasure is so great. Maybe you don't understand everything, but you understand enough to follow the story, and you don't have to pick up a dictionary. So, if you find that this book is too hard, read something easier. If you find it boring, read something more fun. I know that not everyone likes my writing, and that's okay.
Find a book that is good for you. When we have fun, we learn much more. Because I want this book to be fun. It has no exercises in it. I thought about adding them after each story, but I don't think it's a good way to spend your time. Instead, you should read more. Read for pleasure. If you finish this book, you can try the level above. Because you have already read the stories, you will know them well, and it will be easier to understand. But maybe, when you finish this book, you will love stories. I hope so. If you do want to read more, you can listen to my podcast for English listening practice. I write a new story every week with both audio and text, and there are over 100 episodes for you to listen to. We can improve our English with such beautiful stories. Let's listen to this story. It will improve your English speaking skills unprecedentedly. Do you want to improve your English? Do you want to speak English more fluently? You see, the English language changed my life. I was born in Hong Kong, so English is not my first language.
My first language is actually Cantonese. My second language is Mandarin, because my mother is from Taiwan, and my third language is English.
When I first immigrated to South America, I couldn't speak a word of English. I know some of my fans have said that you're tuning into my videos
Because you want to learn how to speak the English language. I find that kind of interesting. So today I want to share with you 5 steps to improve your English fluency.
5 things that I did to learn English. Step 1. Don't worry about judgment. Speak whenever and wherever you can, regardless of your accent. I still have my accent, but that doesn't stop me from connecting with millions of people. Step 2. Immerse yourself. Listen to English music, watch English films, and try to sing along. The more you immerse yourself, the more you'll pick up on language nuances and slang. Step 3. Engage with English speakers. Surround yourself with English speakers. In college, I intentionally socialized with native speakers to practice. Step 4. Find language partners. Connect with people who speak English, whether through friends, language exchange apps, or classes. With engaging, high-stakes conversations. Step 5. Embrace overlearning. Push yourself beyond your comfort zone. Just like training a muscle, if you want to lift heavier weights, you must start with more than you can handle. Challenge yourself.